You can take all that money and buy gold and silver related assets. And for those of you who have piles of money, and a lot of the listeners do, if you don't want to be completely in gold and silver shares and coins, then you buy Canadian and Swiss franc treasuries. And it's as simple as that. And they're very cheap to buy. You're not going to make any money on the yield to speak of, but you'll have a hedge against the dollar. And now that the dollar has rallied from 74 to 77, if you look at a chart, which I looked at today, you see resistance at 77. I don't think it's going to break out.
Okay, hold that thought. We got to take this break. 800-313-9443. We await your calls with your intelligent questions. We'll be right back. They are entranced by Robert Chapman of the International Forecaster. Nobody wants to talk to you. They just want to listen to you, Bob.
Well, I'm trying to keep my voice as moderated as possible because I got 2 more shows to do, and one of them's 3 o'clock tomorrow morning on George Norrie's Coast to Coast AM.
Yeah.
And so all of you people listen in and or listen to the streaming later and tell them what you think of the program.
George Norrie, Coast to Coast. Yeah, I wanted to get on that, and producer called me and says, well, basically, what's your hook? I said, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the history of alternative media? Do you want to talk about global governance? Do you want to talk about what do you want? And evidently, I'm not controversial enough because I don't get up there and scream and lie and agitate and be, extremely controversial. I'm like you, Bob. I'm low key. I just state the facts and maybe, well, your notoriety because of the International Forecaster. You've been doing that for how many years now?
20.
20 years. So your name has been out there. And how did this come about? Did they contact you?
Yes.
Really?
And I've been contacted, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, by Fox, and I've been on a number of other programs.
Did you do the show, by the way?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
Because they never contacted me again. They wanted me at that time for something specific, and evidently, and whatever. It's not important. What was important is the day that they wanted me. I had a whole bunch of other programs, and I'm not going to cut some other program out because Fox calls me the day before and says, we want you on. If it was the President of the United States, I would have told him the same thing. Take a hike. That's not fair. Not fair to the people who I'm on with all the time. I'm not going to drop them like a hot potato because destiny calls. I'm not in this to make money. And, I think they probably want me on there because in the polls, the surveys, I've been beating all of their top people. They get paid $10 or $20 or $30 million a year. And they wanted to find out, I think, why is this guy popular?
Because you tell the truth, and that's what people want to hear. Fox News, they're playing kind of a game right now. They just came out with a news story. Be very afraid of Obama's latest Big Brother plan. Did you hear about this one? The OPM, and I usually call OPM other people's money. Most people think it's a drug, but I call it OPM. It's the Office of Personnel Management. And they're supposed to be the independent government agency that's charged with managing the civil service system of the federal government. And if you are a Fed employee, then civil service laws, rules, and regulations that are managed by the opium people govern you. And one of their main charges is to administer and oversee federal health care provided to all employees. But they're doing something a little bit different here with this, Bob. The director is appointed directly by the president, confirmed by the dramatically democratic traitors of the Senate. And the current director is a fellow by the name of John Barry. And you know where they got this guy? He used to run the Smithsonian National Zoo. Now, what they're going to do with this is their national health care scheme, it's not only going to be charged with overseeing the administering of the federal employees' health care, but will have an added charge of administering civilian federal health care as well. Now, basically,
to whom?
Well, to everybody else. All Americans.
Where?
All Americans will be treated as civil servants. And
really?
And the office of...
Now, that's the guy that was in charge of the cage of the orangutans.
Well, and this is just another move. You know, they keep saying that,
Orangutonian move.
There you go. They're saying here that, we're not sure. Obama had to call in the troops, the Democrats that are kind of split, about the health care. Bob, I'm not kidding you. I'll tell you how deep...
This is an end run, you know.
Well, yeah. And I'll tell you how deep the anger is with Obama. I was talking to a guy who was having tires put on my car, an Asian fellow. He and I struck up a conversation. He had as many as 150 employees at one time. Generally, it floats between 50 and 150. He does automotive stuff and special projects and whatever. He said, based on 100 employees, he says, it's going to cost me $1.25 million to insure. And he said, and I was shocked. Now, here's an Asian guy. Okay, I didn't say this. An Asian fellow said this. He basically referred to Barack Obama as an ignig in charge. And he said, this guy's insane. And I'm sitting there, and it took me aback. I just sat there, and I looked at him, and the thought struck me how deep the discontent and the abject hatred of this communist socialist that is now occupying the White House. I mean, it just set me aback. I didn't expect it. But this guy, he's a high roller. He's made his millions. But he said, you know what I'm doing? He said, I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm laying my employees off, and I'm shutting my doors. And
the same thing will happen throughout the country, and the same thing will happen to the money. It'll leave the country. And the same thing will happen in the medical field. I saw a survey, 25 to 35% of doctors will stop practicing. And then you'll have lines, you need your appendix out. They don't have enough room. You'll have to wait, and it bursts, and you die of peritonitis. You get cancer, and let's say it's lung cancer, and you can't have an operation for 8 months. This is what goes on in Canada all the time, in England. And your time comes around in 7 months, they're all ready to go in there and remove that cancerous lung, and you die.
Well, here's something.
Because you waited too long.
Here's something else to consider. Have you heard of this one? And Chuck Baldwin, which is not a radical, over-the-top shock jock, so to speak. He's a man of deep religious convictions. He ran for president, albeit even with Ron Paul's influence there, didn't get too far. But this guy came out the other day, and he said that an obscure report in the European Union Times, Russian military, and here's the headlines, Russian military analysts are reporting to Prime Minister Putin that U.S. President Obama has issued an order to his northern commands, that would be U.S. Northcom, the top leader, U.S. Air Force General Gene Renault, to begin immediately increasing his military forces to 1 million troops by January 30th of next year, 2010, in what these reports warn is an expected outbreak of civil war within the United States before the end of next winter. You heard about this one?
It's in tomorrow's issue.
Okay.
And there's been talk about that for some time, and it is a good possibility. I think I've received a number of emails from men and women of all rank in all the services, as well as from law enforcement people. And they say they are not going to shoot American citizens.
I just had, on yesterday's program, subbing for Robbie, I just had the guy from Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, on. And he's been accused of being a gatekeeper and a name taker and turning all the names over to the Fed. He said, look, don't join the organization. Just, if you're military and police, just follow your oath. Just follow your constitutional oath. And when you're given orders to do something that is totally illegal and unconstitutional, walk away from it. If we do not have that division within the military, they will eventually move on the American people. They've thrown out posse comitatus. They're gearing up. They got their FEMA camps going, and I don't give a crap what Glenn Beck says. I think he should go back to drinking like he did before and doing stand-up comedy.